Hi guys, and welcome back to the Hot Seat. I'm your host Priscilla Moy, and we are live here at the Social Media Show studio. As promised, we always jump right into our amazing episode. It's going to be a juicy one today, and we're going to start off with a guitarist. He has an amazing resume. He's traveled all over the world performing while also working a corporate job and being an amazing businessman. So everyone, please welcome Tony Pereira. Hello, Tony.
Nice
Welcome
to
to
meet
the
you.
show. Nice to meet you. Take a seat. Thank you for having your time here on Wednesday to sit here and talk to me about your amazing life.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Of course.
I always like to talk about myself.
I've seen a couple of your interviews, and it does seem like he does. So, first and foremost, you are an East Coaster. You're from New Jersey.
I am.
Correct.
Born and raised.
Born and raised, and you have lived your life of business. You know, you've studied and you've worked actually in a corporate job, Accenture being one of them, while also playing the guitar since, when was it, 69?
Yes,
You've been learning
1969,
playing
right?
guitar. Okay, right. So tell me a little bit about that. So you basically have played guitar your whole life, but never really going for a career as just a straight guitarist, correct? Because I
Correct.
know that you still had that. So what was that like for you, and why did you keep guitar on the side while pursuing corporate work?
So, if we go back, like I said, to 1969 when we started playing, I mean, I always loved to play. So, my parents were, encouraging me quite a bit. Between my father bringing home records, my mother playing the radio, and doing a bunch of different things. So, where we went on this one is that, it's a tough way to make a living, but I still enjoyed playing the guitar. And what I did was I made sure I studied with the best. So I studied with Sal Salvador, who was with Stan Kenton. I studied with High White, who was with the CBS Orchestra. I played whatever I could play. I was fortunate enough to also become friends with Lou Paulo, who was Les Paul's guitar player. And I sat next to, just like this, next to Lou for 18 years with him mentoring and teaching me how to play and how to perform. So, and that's always, when you talk about on the side, I always think about life as having just, you have a bunch of irons in the fire, right? So there's playing is one of them, your family is another one, your career is another one. There's so many, your anything else, maybe your community life is another one, right? But you have all these things that are going on. And for me, when I looked at being a musician, one of the hardest things about being a musician is just getting any traction and doing it for a living. And to be honest with you, I just didn't like being broke. It was it's one of those things you do feast and famine, is how I observed being a musician. And a lot of the guys I knew who were wonderful players and amazing players were struggling, and guys that were way better than me struggling. So I decided along the way is that I could do both. And what I started doing is I started building my career and getting more traction that way, getting to see the world in my last job. When I retired from Accenture in 2017, I had worked in 16 countries, worked and lived in 4 of them, and spent a considerable amount of time in Asia, 3.5 years in Asia, and got to learn a lot, see the world, learn about myself, learn about other cultures, but continuing to play the guitar. And then if you look at the world as being, here's my corporate professional life, and then here's my guitar life, over the time it started doing this. I started spending more time playing the guitar, and then less time really being focused on the corporate world, because I'd seen it, done it.
Yeah, I mean, you put in the work already, so it's more time that, if you're going towards retirement, you don't really need to put your 100% all that into it if you've already built that part of your career up.
And you also too have to understand as for yourself, being not so much you but me, is that as you're wanting to do that other portion, you're going to start not giving your 100%, as you're saying. That's not fair to your clients, your company, the people that work for you, things like that. So at some point, you've got to make the decision that, hey, this has got to stop, and then you have enough to live, and then you go over and start concentrating. And then all the skills that I learned of building businesses, because we incubated businesses at Google, Facebook, we did it with Procter & Gamble, we did it with all clients around the world, is that you take those skills and you start applying them now to the music world.
Right. And that was going to be my next question is, there's a lot of people that have been here that perform, but they also have a background in corporate where they still do it or they just quit. And I always ask how that's incorporated what you do. I mean, obviously, with entertainment, there is business behind it, whether people understand that or not.
Right.
But I know with Accenture, you work with some big corporations, big companies, and you work with how AI works and how these companies are generating it and all those things. So if you work with, the Fortune, 500 type of companies, how has that impacted how you push your own brand as a guitarist, as a musician?
So we at that point, to your, what we do with this one is you look at what is marketable out there too, because you have to be very careful when you're playing. When you're playing, and Lou used to remind me, he says, when you're playing for your audience, you're not playing for yourself. If you're playing for yourself, go just get a studio, a bunch of guys together, a bunch of people together, play your heart's content, play whatever you want to play. But at the end of the day, you are putting together a product that you want to make sure that the people that are watching are enjoying. You want people tapping your feet. So what you want to do is you want to figure out, okay, what do you think is going to get these people looking at you, paying attention to your music, and sometimes it's trial and error. What Lou used to do back in the day, he'd sit there in a room on a casual gig, and he'd divide the room up, and he'd play different types of music and see the reaction. Then at the break, he'd go to me, they like Frank Sinatra, they like 60s, they like country western, and then what you do is you tailor your moment and your music to them. And with Tony Pereira's Guitar Night, which I've been incubating for the last several months, when I looked at that, we kind of had a hole in the market. We have guitar nights in New York City with Frank Vignola. We used to have one in LA with John Pisano. He did it for 20 years, now he's in his 90s, not so much anymore. And we didn't really have that really going on here, and I looked at it and I said, well, this would be fun to do. So then we put on my Accenture hat and said, well, we have to incubate the business a bit. We have to try a few things out, make some investments, see what works, see what doesn't work, and then mold the show over time. So we've done the show 3 times. I've got another booking where we just immediately got another booking to do the show in the same place, and I have an option for more in the same venue. But what we do is we do a show. What we do is we don't go from song to song to song to song. We play tunes that people know. We play a couple tunes maybe they don't, but that's okay. And then we also give the history behind the music as to something like All of Me. When was it written? Who did it? Who did it first? Why was it such a big hit? What was happening in the country at that time? And when you and stories like that, and which we find even with Accenture or the Food Channel or any of those, stories that come from the heart, stories that are meaningful to you, translate very well. The audience says, oh yeah, I can relate to that. I've had a mother, sure. I've played guitar. Yeah. My mother liked to hear me play guitar. Well, people also had their family sitting there loving them when they were playing their instruments. Songs remind people of things. They're events in their lives, happy, sometimes sad. Robert Conti, who's my current guitar teacher right now, who I get a lot of coaching from, Robert will say that what he learned over his years of playing is every song has a meaning to someone. And what you want to do is you want to strike those chords, and you want to reach and touch the people with the music, and that's what we shoot to do. And so, like I said, so we look at as from the corporate side of it, which is what do you think is going to be marketable, what do you think is going to sell, and then how do we then appeal to the emotional side of it, which is having the audience say, yeah, you know what, I can relate to that. I remember that song, or I like that, or you guys are pretty interesting. I never saw that before.
Right. So I know Shanghai was one of the places that was on your resume of places that you played guitar. Now, with places where English might not be the first language or even second, and you have different cultures, and even though we can say music is kind of like a universal language, everyone can understand music in a way and relate to it or like it or whatever. How did you gear the styling to the audience of places where they may not have heard of certain artists that you were playing, and how did you get kind of a great reaction from those audiences in those countries?
So, well, one of the beauties of actually being outside the United States is jazz is pretty well known and appreciated. Yeah. I think we did pick tunes. So I think about Shanghai specifically. When I was working in Shanghai, we definitely picked tunes that were known and relatable. Even if there was a language barrier. Now, one thing about Shanghai is like sitting in New York City. It's just a Chinese version of New York City. Yeah, so it's a melting pot. If we were in Chengdu, in the center of the country, where the war machine is, and further isolated, maybe we might not have been so fortunate. But being in Shanghai, a very international, very global city, who was thirsting for anything that was coming out of the West at the time. In fact, that year, in 2010, was the Shanghai Expo, and Herbie Hancock was there with Dee Dee Bridgewater. So giants of jazz were there, and they just packed the place. So what we did is we made it relatable. One of the things we don't do and the same thing I did when I was in Shanghai, is I made sure that we were light on solos. Very long on melody, because Les Paul once said to me, Tony, he says, no one hums your solo. No one. They hum the melodies. They want to walk out humming a song that they've heard.
Right, of course.
And so with Tony Pereira's Guitar Night, what we did in Shanghai, anytime I play, it was very long on melody, maybe a couple of choruses on the solo, maybe no more than one. And then we move on to the next song. And we did that, and it was funny because funny that you asked that question, is because the singer she was from Austria but educated in New York City, and wonderful voice, Heidi Kren. And I remember Heidi she felt like I was working her to death, because we would do, like when she would do a gig, she'd maybe sing five tunes for an hour. She'd do 12 with me. And because we went boom, song after song after song, keep the audience engaged. So I think in Shanghai, we kept our audience engaged, and I had great support from the food and beverage manager there, who took great pains to advertise. When his boss pushed back on some of it, all of a sudden his boss started bringing guests to the gig. And we'd do it once a month, and it would be a trio, piano, it would be a voice, guitar, and bass. And then later on, we added a drum. But it was just making it relatable.
Yeah, but that's great, because I think a lot of times, even if they might not know the song, if they hear a great melody or they hear great instrumentals and great playing, you're kind of tuned in. You kind of,
Right.
get their attention in that way. And like you said, music's a universal language. So even if it's just instrumental, no vocal, nothing, I think that's a lot of people just like listening and hearing great musicians just playing, whether it's piano, guitar, in your case. But taking it back, what was it about guitar specifically? So today I know you it's an electric guitar.
Yep,
correct?
my 7-string.
Right. Okay, so you play guitar your whole life. Was there something about guitar that you're like, that's the one? Because I'm sure music always spoke to you, but did you have a battle of, what should I play? Guitar, you have bass, you have cello, you have piano, things like that. What was it about the guitar that really spoke to you?
So back in go back even further, probably in the early, mid-60s, my mother
Okay.
signed me up for piano lessons.
Okay.
And it just wasn't for me. I didn't want to practice. I just didn't enjoy it. It just wasn't floating my boat. So my mother said to the piano teacher, the piano teacher grabbed my mother, said, "Look, he's not doing it. He doesn't. He's hating it. What you have to do," he said to her, "is stop, let him come to you, and he will pick an instrument." So my mother said to the piano teacher, and this is very typical, here in New Jersey or New York. My mother said to the piano teacher, "Well, I like piano." He says, "Well, then I'll teach you piano," but he doesn't want to play.
Right.
About a few years later, and we started doing. I went to a Catholic grammar school, and that's why that's relevant. Is back in that period, we started doing those folk masses, and we had people coming in and playing guitar. So there was one particular guy he was an adult, and he was really good. I'm like, that's pretty interesting. And then, of course, you heard the Jimi Hendrix and all the stuff that was happening around the same time, and Led Zeppelin and things like that, but didn't really speak to me. But I saw these guys playing, and one of the reasons I thought guitar would be good too is you have total control of your instrument, meaning quality too. Because if you go back in those days, we didn't have a lot of electric pianos. It wasn't that big. It was just becoming big. So you're always at the mercy of whatever instrument was sitting in a room. So I never really considered any of the other band instruments like horns and things like that. I just wanted to play something that I could kind of carry with me, but that would be universal. And then I could hear things like Johnny Smith, and doing solo guitar, and hearing all these other people that used the guitar like a piano, and it just grabbed me. And I started. My mother and father said to me, "Okay, great. Well, you're 10 years old. We'll wait till the summer's over. When the fall rolls around, we'll start with the guitar lessons." Never look back. I was 10 years old and never looked back. I barely remember not having a guitar in my hand.
It just clicked. Right?
Yeah, I just loved
Picked
it.
up
My mother
the
said, my mother's not long gone now, but my mother would tell you, she would say, I've never had to tell them to practice. Never.
Yeah,
Never. I just love it. And today, I practice 5, 6, 7 hours a day today.
of course. Do you write your own music? Compose?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not do that. There's such a, it's something I would like to start to do, but there's so many beautiful tunes out there that, because I've done arranging, and I've done things like that, but not writing new tunes. There's so many beautiful Great American Songbook tunes that I just love to play and love playing with them with other people. And you can't write those tunes today because the world just isn't there.
Yeah.
Meaning, even if you could try to write it, it doesn't lend itself to producing that type of music anymore. So I don't know what I would write if I did try to write, but I love diving into the Great American. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of tunes that I'll be long dead before I can get to them all.
Of course, and I know that you specialize in the Great American
Yeah,
Symphony.
that's what I love to play.
Right, and you also, is there some musician, even or if it's a singer, it doesn't even have to be a guitarist,
Mm-hmm.
that really motivated you to become better? Like, you look at this person, like, this is my idol, right? This is what continues to motivate me, is that whatever impact that that musician might have on you emotionally, on your life, or even within the world of music that we know today, who would that person be?
Whew, it's be hard to narrow it down to one. I mean, I would say that my all-time favorite guitar player is probably, I'm sure you've never heard of him, is Tony Mottola.
Okay.
And Tony Mottola was like the guitarist's guitarist. He was very famous in New York City. Used to be on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. He was in the band the whole bit. But Tony had, like, and I knew Bucky Pizzarelli was a friend of his, and that guitar that I have over there is a model, Bucky model. And Bucky will say they've never heard Tony Mottola ever hit a bad note. So I would say if I wanted to be anybody, or that was kind of my model, but then you could start going from there, right? There's Bucky Pizzarelli, there's Art Tatum on the piano, Oscar Peterson on the keyboard, on the piano, Frank Sinatra, the way he delivered a song, and another one that probably, Billie Holiday, Judy Garland. I mean, you can go all these different folks just coming down the list of pieces that you grab. And I think, as you become more proficient in anything, you tend not to focus on any one individual. You try to grab the best of what you think is relevant and best pieces for you, and start adding it to your bag of tricks, which I think ultimately. So I say, if you ask me to pin the one, I would say Tony Mottola would be my guitar god. And then from there, what are the other ingredients from other people like Johnny Smith, Howard Roberts, my guitar teacher Robert Conti, Lou Palo, Les Paul, Fred Astaire, another one. You think, oh my God, is he a great? He's one of the greatest vocalists ever who deliver a song. His song interpretations, bar none, are better than anybody's. And you listen to some of his watch his old movies. Everybody thinks about him dancing, but the way he delivered an Irving Berlin tune,
Of course.
beautiful,
Absolutely.
beautiful.
Right, and you, being from the East Coast, even New Jersey, you had access to a lot of things going on in New York. And
Lucky.
being on the East Coast, you have a lot of that live entertainment at a really high standard. You have really big schools and, that really focus on music out there, right? So now that you lived in Las Vegas, how long have you been here?
I've been here officially since 2016.
Okay, 2016. So it's not that long.
No.
But I'm sure you've now seen the differences between what Las Vegas has to offer in regards to the level and standard of entertainment versus what is there in New York, right on the East Coast. How do you manage that? Do you notice those things? Do you see it as a positive, a negative? And what are you trying to contribute, being from a big city like that can bring to Las Vegas?
Well, I don't know if I'm so cocky to say I'm bringing anything to Las Vegas, to be honest with you. I don't know if I would say that, but if you talk about differences, I would say that our focus, because we have a lot of really good players here. In fact, Brahm Sheray, who's going to be with me on bass tonight, is a phenomenal bass player. And he lived in New York for a while, too, so you do have some transplants that have lived there and come out. I would say that the focus here in Vegas, you'll hear that Vegas is called the entertainment capital, whereas you'll hear the other cities are called music capitals. And I think here there's more of a view on entertainment, more on the singing. There's small pockets of places where you can actually play. So I think we have a great talent pool here. We absolutely do. Is the talent pool any different than in New York? I just think the focus may be a little different. I think you have a lot more small ensembles, more opportunities for jazz musicians to play in New York, LA, or in Chicago than you do here in Las Vegas. And it's just the market.
Yeah, of course.
But in terms of players, we've got some amazing players. I mean, I can go down the list. I mean, you have Joey Singer, 35 years with Debbie Reynolds, but you throw him on a keyboard to play some jazz, and the guy burns the place down. Steve Flora is another bass player that's fantastic out there. Jake Langley is one of the finest guitarists in the city. John Falbo is another great guitar player who does a lot with Bruce Harper. I think he's well into his 70s. He's a New York guy that transplanted himself out here. Have you heard of him? Probably not. But if you go to Manzu on Friday night when Naomi is singing, John will be the guitar player. So we have a lot. Boris Shapiro, great drummer. Adam Shandell, another great drummer who is with Wayne Newton. And all these different players are here. So we've got the talent pool. I think the opportunity for them to play the type of music that you can get in LA and in New York is here, just not as much. But can they execute? Absolutely.
Yeah.
At a very high level.
Of course. So you also a music producer as well. I know that there's some performers out here that you're associated with, Leila Ross being one of them. And, you know, you're performing on your own with your band, you perform with other people. What kind of is your goal as a performer in Las Vegas? Where do you want to end up? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind as a guitarist, as a performer, as a musician?
Well, part of the legacy I would think is that, you know, whenever you hired me, you got a guy that paid attention and did his best. So that's part of the legacy I would like to, as a musical director and things like that. I think ultimately I would like to see this guitar night turn into something. You know, the guitar night was designed to actually be multiple rotating guitarists, rotating singers, maybe even rotating band members. You know, John Pisano in L.A. had a different guitar player every week when they would do it, and Frank in New York City has probably stable guys. That's who's ever in town. That's who you direct, right? And to me, I would like to say that, you know, this guy helped put the guitar back on the map, at least in this city, you know, in Vegas, and has those guitar nights. And that to me is my legacy. I would like to see is that the guitar night takes off, and people come and see it and enjoy it, and come out for as long as they do enjoy it.
Right.
And then, you know, we make sure that we don't overstay our welcome. I think it's very important in any business. You have to watch your crest, you know, and you have to get out before the crest.
Yeah.
You know,
course.
and I think that's very clear. I mean, you start to see it now with some of the performers, like Johnny Smith was one of those. Was another one who was the guitar player, but Johnny stopped playing because he couldn't practice to keep himself at the level of what he perceived to be Johnny Smith. And I do think, just like Seinfeld, you know, they hit the crest, they were number one when they went out. Andy Griffith went out number one, right? All these, and I think it's better to say, man, I wish they were still on, versus, oh, I'm glad they're gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they hit a plateau and then there's nothing really different. It's not changing. It's not exciting anymore.
Yeah, then you
know?
need to stop. You know,
Right.
then you need to find something else to do. Yeah.
So what would you say about yourself in regards to other performers? If you were in a group of musicians and you said, okay, well, choose me, what would be your pitch? What makes you different and stand out beyond all these other amazing talent in Las Vegas?
I don't know if I would use, because we always were very careful about that at Accenture. Is
Okay.
you didn't quite always compare yourself to your competition. Is usually, so what is something that, you know, what am I bringing to the table? What I'm bringing to the table is, you know, my business focus. So I think what I used to do helps me when somebody hires me as a musical director, because not only think about the music, I'm thinking the business aspect of it, profitability and things like that. So I think when you grab me, you're getting that former Accenture
Right.
guy, which is very business focused.
And I
looking at
feel
the
it's
bottom
hard
line.
for you to let that part go.
And I
Your
won't.
corporate- you won't.
Yeah, I
but
won't,
It's hard for you to
because-
fully immerse yourself in music without bringing up, you know, Accenture.
Well, I can immerse myself. What I don't immerse myself is being, and I don't want to use this as a negative, but being artistic at the risk of not watching the bottom line. So I think what I bring is being able to harmonize the two. Is that I do believe that there's a certain level of artistry that has to be done, but you also have to make a profit in order to be sustainable. So I think if you hire me, you're getting that former background there. If you're hiring me, it's because you're looking for more of a jazz guy than a rock guy. So the more pop tunes, the more covers and stuff like that, I tend to shy away from those. You know, if you called me up and said to me, look, I've got a cover band, we're going to be doing a bunch of tunes, and we're going to do them exactly like the record, I would be more than happy to give you 5 guys that are better than me to do that. And I think I bring that value too, is I won't do something that I
It's
feel.
not your strong suit.
Yeah, and I would be happy to recommend somebody who I think can do it. Yeah, and so there's really no ego with me. One of the beauties of being retired now is that I can pick and choose what I want to do. I don't have to take everything, and by taking everything, you can really screw somebody else's band up. But if you're not honest with yourself too. So I bring that to the table, and I think professionalism, and the other part of it is you'll have a very tight business model, you know, in terms of contracts, people getting paid on time. You know,
Yeah.
that's a big
Yeah, it's
issue.
a big
That's
issue
a
here.
big issue.
I will agree with you on that one.
People getting paid is I've
It's
seen
super
people.
hard for some reason. I don't know why it's.
Well, I
sometimes
think
it's the lowest like you would think that's not even supposed to be a big deal, and then it ends up being like
It's
you're
huge.
chasing down a year later
Yeah.
for a gig you did, and you know.
I know people that do
Yeah.
that. I mean, you know, I tend to EFT it. Like when my rule, because I may forget, or I may get on to something else.
Right.
You know, when we're doing a gig and as you're walking in the door, I'm just shooting you the money.
Yeah.
You're not going to
Yeah,
run
you're
out
not
of me.
worried about it.
You're not going to
Yeah.
run out on me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're not going to leave. So you shoot them money. Now they're not worried about getting paid.
Yeah.
And they're done. Now they can
That's
focus
done.
on
That's
what
right.
I need them to focus on,
Exactly.
which is the music. But it's very interesting. I think what I've noticed is I think some of the bands out there, when they're taking gigs, they tend to run their business underfunded.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you'll hear things like, well, I was waiting for the club's check to clear. You know, collections is my
Yeah.
problem. Not if you're working for me. You know,
Yeah, it
collections
should
are
be the
my
artist's or the performer's issue. Like you should just
Yeah.
guarantee their payment.
collections are my
regardless.
problem.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
If I never get paid by the venue, that is not your problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and I don't make it anybody's problem.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the big people
Yeah,
get
and
with me
it's
too.
a popular thing. I've
Yeah.
noticed.
Yeah, I may
as
not
an
be.
artist,
That may not be maybe the best guy they're going to work for in terms of being a musician, but they know they'll get paid.
Yeah, but that's if you. It sounds crazy. You would think that should be like the bare minimum.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that, especially here, that is actually a far reach. You're asking for a lot when you're demanding your pay, and you already did the job, right?
Yeah, well, I've seen guys,
So-
I've seen performers, musicians that I've talked to. They'll tell me that they waited months, months.
Yeah, I've waited years. Still,
Yeah.
I'm threatened when I ask for it. You know,
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that,
and
that's
you know,
what happens.
and as a business guy, you know, there's cost of money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for every minute you don't get paid, it's a 1.5% per month that you're losing on the money. I mean, that's the way I think.
Yeah.
Right. So if I don't give somebody something, then and then on top of that, if you've got to chase me, your hourly wages keeps going down for every minute you have to spend chasing me to get what you should have gotten in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the way I
And
think.
then you kind of ruin business
Yeah.
networks and all those things.
Yeah,
Now
nobody
you're not
wants to
gonna
work for
hire-
you.
Exactly, exactly. So
I mean,
it's
I-
never going to work out. I don't know why that's a thing, but it's very, very, very much
Yeah.
a thing. So you're going to be performing today, correct?
Yes.
And can you give a little insight on what you'll be performing? You do have your bass player here with you
Yes,
that we will
Graham.
see after the interview. So give us a little insight on what the viewers will be expecting. From
So
us.
what we're going to do is we're going to do a swing tune called "Swonderful" by George Gershwin, and it's an old tune, probably from 1927, 28. And we're probably going to see something that you probably don't see too often, which is one of my favorite ways to play, is just guitar and bass. And you know, and what's beautiful about that moment is like, you know, when you have a player like Brahm, not only is he basically is your drummer, he's your keyboard player, and so he's providing your harmony behind you and also the pulse. And all I have to do is play. Because if you look at music, there's only two things you ever really need. You need melody, and you need bass.
Yes.
Everything in between is gravy. It's just icing on the cake, nice to have. The 7-string guitar, which I guess point to off camera here with you guys, is a Bucky Pizzarelli model. I started playing 7-string probably about 20 years ago. Bucky was one of my favorite players. George Van Emp's another one. The 7th string is a low A, which allows me
Okay.
to give me some more depth. So when I
see.
play a note, I can hit it. So if I'm playing by myself, I may not need a bass player. I like
Yeah.
having them. I think they're great. But if I don't have one, I have enough bottom in my guitar to be able to do solo guitar too.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really not a lot of people can play 7-string guitar.
Yeah, a lot of people
And,
don't want to
yeah.
either. It's
Yeah,
like-
it's a lot. It's a lot, you know. So one last question. This
Sure.
question I ask all of my guests because it kind of sums up who they are. It kind of sums up everything we've heard because I think the viewers get to know you a little bit as the interview goes along. The question is there a philosophy that you live by?
Yeah, do the right thing.
Okay.
Do what you always believe is the right thing. You know, there's probably when I was with Accenture, that was one thing my boss always said. It was about the integrity. He said when I was there, he said you never had to worry about trusting me. He always knew I would take care of the clients. He always knew I would take care of the people. He always knew that, you know, no matter what it took, we would always do the right thing and what we believed was to be right.
Right.
Now, sometimes what you believe to be right may be wrong, but as long as you go in there with your heart as pure
Yeah.
intent that you believe
It's
you're doing the
genuine.
right thing and that you're not gaming the system, trying to make yourself look better at the expense of
Yeah.
anyone else, just do the right thing. So to me, just do the right thing. You know, do the right thing. Do what you believe is in your heart, and I think you do that, and
Yeah.
you're good.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that kind of sums you up as a whole. I mean, I feel like that's how you lived your life. I mean, you are a good businessman.
much easier.
It's pretty, yeah, it is. And if you lead being genuine like that, I
Yeah.
feel like you don't have as much to worry about because at least everything you did was with integrity and something that you believe in. So there's not much to.
Yeah,
there's
there's another-
no fluff. There's no,
No.
to remember what did I say. Right? You know what I mean? It's very.
Well, to paraphrase, I
straightforward.
think it was
Yeah.
paraphrasing Mark Twain, is you never have to remember anything if you tell the truth.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah,
That's exactly
right.
Right. So please tell the audience where they can follow you, they can view you, about your guitar night, where your next show is going to be,
Sure.
and how they can look out for that.
So we are going to be at Max's Jazz on Decatur and Flamingo. So you go to maxofjazz.com and they go to reservations. That's going to be June 7th at 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. We're going to have on Tony Pereira's guitar night that night. We'll have John Wiedemeyer, from the lead guitarist for the Beach Boys, will be with me. Brahm Sheray, who you will see today with me on bass. We'll have Wendy Karianis on vocals, and we'll have Adam Shandell on drums. We had a great night the last time, and Max invited us back pretty fast. So come on down. In fact, a couple of people came down and asked me, to play a couple of songs for them while they were there. So happy to do some requests there.
You're good with improv too. That's how well you know your music. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. When we come
Thank you.
back, they will be performing right after this break, so make sure you don't go anywhere.
Thanks, Priscilla, for inviting us to play a tune. So today we're going to do a tune called It's Wonderful, and we talked about it a little bit earlier by George Gershwin. To my left is my favorite bass player in town, Brahm Sheray. And in fact, when we talked about guitar night, Tony Pereira's guitar night, you will see Brahm there on the next one.
And bringing some amazing music in the studio, and thank you so much, Tony, for that amazing interview. So make sure to go look them out on social media and go see their show on June 7th. Thank you guys so much once again, and when we come back from the break, we're going to meet our next guest, so don't go anywhere.
Thank you.